He said he'd lost his job. But it wasn't the job he lost, it was my trust. That's the line that replays in my mind every time I think about that winter. The kettle had just started whistling, and I was pouring hot water into his favorite blue mug, the one that said "World's Best Husband," when he told me. He didn't look up when he said it. He just sat there, shoulders slightly hunched, tapping his thumb against his phone like it might give him courage. "Babe, I've got some bad news," he said. "They let me go." His voice cracked just enough for me to believe him. I remember how my heart clenched, not from fear, but from sympathy. I thought about the years he'd given that company, the nights he came home late, his tie loosened, exhaustion painted on his face. I thought about how hard he worked for us. And so, without even asking for details, I crossed the small space between us and wrapped my arms around him. "It's okay," I whispered. "We'll get through this." If I had known then that we meant me alone, I would have let that coffee grow cold. For the first few weeks, things felt strange, but manageable. His name is Adam. We've been married for 11 years. We have a small apartment on the east side of town. Nothing fancy, but it's ours. Or it was. He'd worked in sales, and I taught at a local primary school. Between us, we made enough to live comfortably, to take small weekend trips, to argue about which show to watch on Netflix. After he lost his job, I took on extra tutoring hours. It wasn't easy, but I told myself this is what marriage is, partnership through storms. I remember one night vividly. I came home exhausted, my voice hoarse from teaching, and found Adam in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, cooking dinner. The smell of garlic and butter filled the room. He looked up and smiled. "Chef's special tonight," he said. "You deserve it." I laughed. "What's the occasion?" He shrugged. "Just want to make you happy." Moments like that made me proud of us. I even posted a photo online, unemployed but undefeated. "Love you, Adam." People commented things like "power couple." And that's real love. If only they knew that while I was praising him online, he was spending those same hours building a new life offline. The first clue came quietly. It was a Friday morning, about 3 weeks after he lost the job. I woke up early, the apartment unusually quiet. Adam was already dressed, jeans, a crisp shirt, even his watch on. "Where are you off to?" I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. He smiled a little too quickly. "Just meeting some old colleagues for coffee. Talking about new opportunities." It made sense. Adam was social, connected. Still, I noticed something odd. He'd spritzed cologne, the one he only wore on big presentation days. I almost asked why the cologne for coffee, but I bit my tongue. You don't interrogate someone who's already hurting. Or maybe I was afraid of the answer. That night, he came home later than usual, humming softly, carrying takeout. "Good news," he said between bites of noodles. "Might have a freelance gig coming up. Nothing big yet, but promising." I smiled and congratulated him. I wanted to believe him. God, I really did. Weeks turned into months. His freelance work started consuming more time. He took more phone calls, often stepping out to the balcony, whispering in that low business tone. Once, I walked in and found him typing furiously at the computer. Spreadsheets open, invoices on the screen. He minimized everything before I could glance twice. "Just checking my emails," he said, forcing a grin. I brushed it off. Maybe he didn't want me to worry until things were stable. Maybe I was But money started going missing. Small things first, grocery money short, a payment delay on the power bill. Then one day, the rent check bounced. When I asked him, his reaction was to calm. I had to move some things around. "Don't worry, I'll handle it." Handle it. That was his favorite phrase. I'd hear it again and again, like a lullaby to quiet my doubts. By the 4th month, I was barely sleeping. My students noticed the dark circles under my eyes. My mother asked if I was eating properly. Adam had stopped updating me about job leads altogether. Every time I asked, he'd deflect with a kiss or a joke. "Babe, don't stress. I'm working on something big. Just wait a little longer." Something big. He started dressing better again. Crisp shirts, polished shoes. Though he claimed we were tight on money, he'd come home smelling faintly of coffee and perfume, not mine. It wasn't until one Tuesday afternoon, while cleaning the dining table, that I noticed something that froze my blood. An invoice, folded neatly under a pile of papers. It wasn't from any company I recognized, just a sleek header, L&A Consulting. The A, I guessed, stood for Adam, but L, my name was Sarah. The invoice listed services, project fees, and, at the bottom, 2 names signed off, Adam Walker and Lisa James. My chest went hollow. Lisa. That name itched at the back of my mind. Then it hit me. She was the woman from his office, the one he used to mention occasionally, the one who laughed too loud at company dinners, always leaning too close. I remember once, jokingly, I'd asked, "So, Lisa again? Should I be jealous?" He'd laughed. "She's like a sister to me, babe." But looking at that invoice, the ink still crisp and new, I didn't feel like a sister-in-law. I felt like a fool. That night, I sat in the living room waiting for him. The house was silent, except for the faint ticking of the clock. When he walked in, I could tell by his posture that he'd had a good day. He was humming again. I held up the paper. "What's this, Adam?" He froze. His face went pale, but only for a second. Then he smirked, as if rehearsing calm. "Oh, that. Just a small side project. You know I told you about the freelance stuff. Lisa James is your freelance partner." He sighed, setting down his keys. "Sarah, don't start. It's just business." "Business?" My voice shook. "You told me you lost your job. You told me we were broke. I've been working double shifts, cutting corners while you're running a business." He didn't meet my eyes. "I didn't want to stress you." The air between us thickened. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I didn't. I just stood there, the paper trembling in my hand, and whispered, "You didn't want to stress me, or you didn't want me to know." He didn't answer. And in that silence, I finally understood that the man I'd been protecting had already left me, long before I found the invoice. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Adam's steady breathing beside me. It's strange how someone's presence can suddenly feel foreign. His arm, once comforting across my waist, now felt heavy, intrusive. I turned to face the wall, clutching the blanket to my chest, feeling my heartbeat in my throat. Was I overreacting? Was it really just business? Maybe he truly hadn't meant to lie. Maybe Lisa was just a colleague who helped him get back on his feet. But then, why the secrecy? Why hide something that could have given us hope? The next morning, I made coffee as usual. Adam joined me at the table, cheerful, humming under his breath. He kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. "I've got a meeting later," he said, adjusting his tie. "Might be late tonight." Something inside me hardened. I forced a smile. "With Lisa." He froze, just long enough for me to catch it. Then he chuckled. "You're still on that. Sarah, you really need to stop overthinking everything." I didn't reply. I just watched him walk out the door, that easy confidence in his step. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel love when he left. I felt curiosity, cold and sharp. I started watching. When he left, I noted the time. When he returned, I checked his shirt, his phone, the faint trace of perfume that clung to his collar. For days, nothing. He was careful, too careful. Until one Friday afternoon. I came home early from school, a surprise half-day. The sun was still bright, the neighborhood quiet. Adam's car wasn't in the parking lot, but his laptop sat open on the dining table. He never left it open. My hands trembled as I hovered over the trackpad. I told myself I wouldn't invade his privacy. I told myself I was better than that. But then I remembered the bounced rent check, the sleepless nights, the half-truths. I clicked. An email was open. From Lisa. Subject: "We need to talk about the transfer." My stomach twisted. I scrolled. Her message read, "I know you said she doesn't know, but this can't continue like this. I need my share this week, Adam. If she finds out about the second account, we're done. I froze. My skin went cold, my mind spinning. The second account. He wasn't just hiding a business. He was hiding money. I opened the attached document, a bank statement. It showed a joint business account under both their names, with transactions I didn't recognize, payments, transfers, cash withdrawals, thousands. I felt my knees weaken. My entire world, the one I'd worked to build brick by brick, was cracking. Just then, I heard the front door click open. I panicked, closed the laptop, and darted to the kitchen. My hands shook as I picked up a dish towel, pretending to dry dishes. "Hey," he called out cheerfully. "Didn't know you'd be home." My voice came out steadier than I expected. He set down his keys, humming again, that same hum I'd grown to hate. He poured himself a glass of water, then looked at me. "You okay?" "Fine," I said, too quickly. He studied me for a moment, then shrugged. "Good. I'm meeting a client in a bit. Don't wait up." "Client?" I wanted to shout, "You mean Lisa?" But instead, I nodded. "All right." When he left, I sank into the chair and let the tears come. They weren't the loud, desperate kind. They were quiet, exhausted tears, the kind that come from someone who's realizing the truth, piece by piece, and hating themselves for missing the signs. That night, I couldn't resist. When Adam fell asleep, I slipped out of bed, tiptoed to the dining table, and opened his laptop again. This time, I went deeper. There were invoices, emails, and a shared drive titled Projects, L&A. I clicked it open. Folders of client reports, payment summaries, and photos. At first, they looked like ordinary work pictures, business lunches, presentations, trade fairs. But the more I scrolled, the more intimate they became. One photo stopped me cold. Lisa sitting in a restaurant booth, laughing, her hand resting over his. Another Adam and Lisa posing together at a resort, wine glasses in hand, sunset behind them. And then a selfie, him kissing her on the cheek. I covered my mouth with my hand. The date on the photo. 2 months after he told me he lost his job. The next morning, I confronted him. I waited until he sat down for breakfast. The smell of burnt toast filled the air. Fitting, I thought, because everything between us was about to burn. "Adam," I said quietly, sliding his phone across the table. "I know about Lisa and the business." He blinked, feigning confusion. "What are you talking about?" "I read your emails." My voice shook, but I held steady. "I saw the photos. The bank account, the money you've been moving behind my back." His jaw tightened. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then he laughed, a cold, humorless laugh. "So that's it. You went through my things. Real classy, Sarah." "I had to," I said, tears burning my eyes. "You've been lying to me for months. You told me you lost your job, that we were struggling. I worked double shifts while you were taking vacations with her." He slammed his palm against the table, startling me. "Don't make this bigger than it is." "Bigger," I snapped. "You built a whole life with her. A business. A secret account. You stole our savings." "Adam." He stood, pacing. "I didn't steal anything. That money was mine too. I was trying to start something real, something that could finally succeed. Lisa believed in me." The words cut deeper than he realized. "Lisa believed in you," I whispered. "And what was I doing all this time? Supporting you, covering rent, defending you to my mother." He interrupted, his voice cold. "You always made everything about you." I felt something inside me snap. "You're right," I said quietly. "From now on, it will be." He stared at me, realizing the shift in my tone, the steel in my eyes. For the first time, he looked unsure. I stood, walked to the bedroom, and began packing my bag. He followed me, his voice softer now. "Sarah, come on. Don't do this. It's not what you think." I turned to him, my face wet but calm. "No, Adam, it's exactly what I think. And maybe that's what scares you. That night, I stayed at my sister's place. The bed was unfamiliar. The air smelled like lavender and detergent. And yet, I slept for the first time in weeks. Because even though my world had fallen apart, at least now, I knew the truth. And the truth, as painful as it was, felt like freedom. The morning after I left, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from Adam, messages, voicemails filled with guilt, excuses, and half-hearted apologies. Sarah, you misunderstood everything. It's not what it looks like. Please, just come home. I didn't reply. I just sat by the window at my sister's apartment, watching the city come alive, people rushing to work, children laughing on their way to school. Life, it seemed, went on easily for everyone else, but not for me. For me, every sound, every face, every morning light reminded me of what I'd lost: trust. By the third day, anger began to replace the ache. I wasn't crying anymore. I was thinking. All those years of standing by him, defending him, believing him, and this was my reward. Lies, betrayal, and secret bank accounts. No, he didn't get to just walk away. He didn't get to destroy everything we built and then hide behind words like misunderstanding. So I started gathering things: proof, emails, statements, photos, every trace of his lies that I could find. If he thought I'd quietly disappear, he was wrong. The morning after I left, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from Adam, messages, voicemails filled with guilt, excuses, and half-hearted apologies. Sarah, you misunderstood everything. It's not what it looks like. Please, just come home. I didn't reply. I just sat by the window at my sister's apartment, watching the city come alive, people rushing to work, children laughing on their way to school. Life, it seemed, went on easily for everyone else. But not for me. For me, every sound, every face, every morning light reminded me of what I'd lost: trust. By the third day, anger began to replace the ache. I wasn't crying anymore. I was thinking. All those years of standing by him, defending him, believing him, and this was my reward. Lies, betrayal, and secret bank accounts. No, he didn't get to just walk away. He didn't get to destroy everything we built and then hide behind words like misunderstanding. So I started gathering things: proof, emails, statements, photos, every trace of his lies that I could find. If he thought I'd quietly disappear, he was wrong. A week later, Adam showed up at my school. I saw him standing outside the staff room looking polished, calm, pretending like nothing had happened. He smiled when our eyes met, but I didn't return it. Can we talk? He asked softly. I followed him outside, more out of curiosity than compassion. What do you want? I asked flatly. He sighed. I made mistakes, Sarah. I admit that. But ending our marriage over business decisions isn't fair. I laughed. Business decisions? Is that what you call lying? Hiding money? Cheating? He rubbed his temples. You're overreacting, Lisa and I. Don't, I cut in sharply. Don't say her name. He looked at me for a long moment, then his tone shifted, darker. You think you're innocent. You think anyone will believe you if this goes public. You went through my files. That's invasion of privacy. For a moment, I just stared at him, stunned at the audacity. Betrayal doesn't destroy you. It reveals who truly stands beside you and who only stood for themselves. Sometimes, losing someone isn't a tragedy. It's freedom disguised as pain. It's strange how silence can feel louder after a storm. For weeks after that final encounter, my days felt like open wounds, healing in slow motion. The world looked the same: cars passing, birds singing, people smiling, but I had changed. Something in me had hardened. And yet, softened too. I wasn't the same Sarah who waited up late with reheated dinners, praying for her husband to come home. That woman had died quietly, somewhere between the lies and the invoices. But in her place, someone new was learning how to breathe again. I started small. I moved out of my sister's apartment and rented a tiny one-bedroom flat closer to school. It wasn't much, just cream-colored walls, a squeaky fan, and a balcony overlooking a park. But it was mine. For the first time in years, every decision from what curtains to hang to what tea to brew was mine. I'd wake up early, make coffee, and sit by the balcony with my notebook. At first, I wrote lists, bills, groceries, reminders. Then, slowly, I started writing feelings. Every word became a release, a quiet rebellion against everything I'd swallowed for too long. Sometimes I'd find myself smiling mid-freedom, it turned out, wasn't loud. It was quiet, peaceful, like breathing after years of holding your breath. My colleagues noticed the change before I did. "You seem lighter," one of them said over lunch. "Different, somehow." I smiled, maybe because I finally stopped trying to carry someone else's dreams. They nodded, not fully understanding, but I did. For years, I had poured everything into someone who only saw me as a safety net. Now, every ounce of that energy belonged to me, and I wasn't going to waste it. 2 months later, something unexpected happened. I was sitting in the teacher's lounge when the principal approached me. "Sarah, we're opening applications for assistant head teacher next term," she said. "You should apply." Me? I almost laughed. I'd spent years blending into the background, the quiet, dependable one. But that day, I realized maybe it was time to step forward. I applied. I got it. And when I signed the promotion letter, I thought if Adam could see me now, he wouldn't recognize the woman before him. One evening, I ran into Lisa. It was in a grocery store of all places. She looked older somehow, the kind of tired that makeup couldn't hide. She hesitated before walking over. "Sarah," she said softly. I nodded, polite but distant. "I just wanted to say, I didn't know," she murmured. "He told me you'd left him long before, that you didn't care." By the time I realized the truth, it was too late. I studied her, the regret in her eyes, the slump in her shoulders. Maybe she was telling the truth, maybe not. But for the first time, I didn't feel anger, just a quiet pity. "You both made your choices," I said. "And I've made mine." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry." I smiled faintly. "I know. And I meant it." Because forgiveness, I realized, isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. That night, as I walked home, the air smelled like rain and jasmine, fresh, forgiving. I passed by a small bookstore near my apartment. The sign outside read, "New beginnings start in quiet places." I stopped, staring at it for a long moment. Then I went inside. Over the next few weeks, I started visiting that bookstore often, reading, journaling, sometimes just sitting by the window with a cup of tea. The owner, an older woman named Ruth, once told me, "People don't come here to buy books. They come here to find themselves between the pages." And I smiled because that's exactly what I was doing, finding myself again. Then, one afternoon, something beautiful happened. I was leaving school when one of my students, a shy girl named Emma, ran up to me. "Miss Parker," she said breathlessly, "you said in class we should write about strength. I wrote about you." I froze. "About me?" She nodded. "Because you always smile, even when things are hard. That's strength, right?" My throat tightened. I smiled and managed to whisper, "Yes, Emma, that's exactly what strength is." And as she ran off to join her friends, I realized I didn't just survive what Adam did to me. I had transformed it into something meaningful. That night, I sat by my balcony again, my favorite spot, and opened my journal. I wrote, "He said he lost his job. But what I really lost was my belief that love means sacrifice. Now, I know love should never cost you your peace, your dignity, or your sense of self. I was loyal, I was patient, and I was enough. He just didn't know the worth of what he had, until it was gone." The words felt final, like closing a book you've read too many times. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight lift. The next morning, I watched the sunrise from that same balcony, orange light spilling across the rooftops. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone's footsteps, or someone's apology. I was simply living, and that was enough. Sometimes, life doesn't break you to punish you. It breaks you to rebuild you stronger, wiser, freer. If you're listening to this, wondering whether to hold on or let go, ask yourself, does it still feel like love, or just like pain dressed in memory? Because one day, when the storm settles, you'll look back and realize, losing them was never your ending. It was the beginning of you. When I think back to that time, to the woman who sat in the dark, waiting for a man who'd already left her heart long before his body did, I don't feel anger anymore. I just feel gratitude. Because without the lies, I might never have learned the truth about myself. I used to believe love meant staying. Staying through the pain, the silence, the excuses. But now I know real love doesn't ask you to disappear so someone else can shine. It doesn't thrive in secrets or survive in shadows. Real love stands beside you in the light, unafraid, proud to say, this is my person. And if it doesn't, you walk away. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart breaks a little. Because peace, real peace, is worth far more than promises whispered in the dark. If you've ever loved someone who betrayed your trust, if you've ever stood at the edge of heartbreak and wondered if you'd ever feel whole again, I want you to know this. You will. You'll wake up one morning, look at yourself in the mirror, and realize you didn't just survive it. You became someone stronger because of it. And maybe that's what my story was really about. Not the lies he told, but the truth I finally told myself. That I was enough. That I always had been. Would you have forgiven him? Would you have walked away sooner? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes, sharing your story helps another woman find her strength too. And if this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like mine. Stories about heartbreak, truth, and the quiet power of starting over. Because sometimes, the most beautiful chapters begin right after the ones that break us.